Good afternoon, everybody, and thanks for joining us here on KXAN Live. I'm Will Dupree, coming to you from the KXAN Live studio on this afternoon, and we appreciate you joining us for this conversation. You know, during the past few days, the name Kate Cox has been mentioned a whole lot, and you might have seen this photo of her circulating broadly on social media. She is the pregnant Dallas woman who sued the state to challenge its near-total abortion ban after learning her baby has a fatal condition. And we want to get you updated about this case and what the Texas Supreme Court decided on it as of last night. So joining us right now is our Capitol correspondent, Ryan Chandler, who has been following this case from the very beginning. Ryan, thank you for being here and for sharing some more insight about it.
Will, I appreciate it. Thank you.
You know, let's just start at the base level. A lot of people have heard about this case, but take us back to tell us about who Kate Cox is and what she sought in this lawsuit.
Cox is a 31-year-old woman from Dallas, married with 2 kids, and she wants to grow her family. She was surprised but excited when she found out just this year that she was pregnant with a 3rd child, a baby girl. But it was just about 2 weeks ago that she got a devastating diagnosis. Her daughter has a fatal condition called trisomy 18. And in these pregnancies, the baby hardly ever is born alive. They are very often stillborn. And if they are, they do not survive. They may survive a minute, an hour, a day. In very rare cases, they may last a year, but with very serious complications. So because of Cox's history of pregnancy, she was told by her doctor that if she has this pregnancy, that there's a very high chance she will not walk away with a daughter, and she will not be able to have a future child in the future because this could harm her health and her fertility. So that's why she sued the state in order to get express permission to have an abortion under the medical exception in Texas's abortion ban.
You know, all this really happened so quickly that she learned of the diagnosis, and then there was a hearing in Travis County Court, and the judge agreed with her and allowed for that abortion to be able to proceed here in Texas, but that was also challenged. So talk to us about what happened after that hearing and what the Travis County judge decided.
Yeah, this all happened very quickly. It was just on Friday that a Travis County judge gave her permission to have an abortion under the medical exception and told the Attorney General that they are prohibited from enforcing the ban against Ms. Cox in this current pregnancy. It was a very limited ruling. It only applied to this woman and this pregnancy. Didn't have any other generalizations for women across Texas. But that same day, may have been the next day, but the Attorney General came back very quickly and said to Cox's doctors and her hospital that regardless of what Travis County said, you are still prohibited from performing an abortion for Ms. Cox, and if you do, we are going to subject you to criminal and civil liability. Remember, in Texas, there are 2 different kinds of enforcement against abortion. One is against the doctors, and it says you could be subject to massive fines, life in prison, and loss of your medical license if you perform an abortion that doesn't fall under this narrow medical exception. And 2, it allows private citizens to enforce this with a civil lawsuit against anybody they know who supported a woman in having an abortion. So Ms. Cox's husband was also a part of this lawsuit because he worried that if he supports his wife to travel or to go to the hospital to get this care, that he would also be sued and found liable for helping with that abortion. So the Attorney General said, look, this is not going to happen, and then he went to the Supreme Court and asked for their intervention.
Thank you for that update and kind of clarifying what the law says specifically, because I think that gets lost in some of the conversation about what is in fact in place here in Texas now. But as you mentioned there, the Texas Supreme Court initially sided with the Attorney General in his stance on this particular case. And then it was kind of a waiting game to see what the Supreme Court would issue in its opinion. That came last night, so catch us up to date with what that said.
So the bottom line for Ms. Cox is the Texas Supreme Court said that she cannot have this abortion, and it essentially invalidated the Travis County judge's ruling. There's a lot more to this opinion, though. This whole process started on Friday when the Supreme Court put an initial pause on the Travis County judge's ruling and said, we need some time to hash this out, but in the meantime, we're going to put everything back the way it was, essentially restore the status quo, and that meant getting rid of the Travis County judge's ruling in the first place, or at least for a temporary period of time. And that's when Ms. Cox said, I don't have time to wait. This could take an indefinite period of time, and she ended up leaving the state to get that abortion. We don't know where she is. The closest states with legal abortion to Texas are, of course, New Mexico and Colorado. But we don't know the status of her health or her procedure. All we know is that she ended up leaving over the weekend because she just could not wait any longer. That brings us to last night around 5:30. The Supreme Court issued their final determination, which said that the lower court did not prove sufficiently that she meets the medical exception. So she cannot get an abortion in this case, but there's a lot more analysis that the court gives that gives us some insight into how they could rule on these cases in the future. We can get into that.
Yeah, I want to read just a portion of what the Supreme Court's opinion said. So here's a section of that right here, and we'll read it out in full. It says, a woman who meets the medical necessity exception need not seek a court order to obtain an abortion. Under the law, it is a doctor who must decide that a woman is suffering from a life-threatening condition during a pregnancy, raising the necessity for an abortion to save her life or to prevent impairment of a major bodily function. It went on to, in a different section, say this, and it applied to Kate Cox's doctor in particular. It says, quote, the exception requires a doctor to decide whether Ms. Cox's difficulties pose such risk, and then her doctor's name there asked a court to pre-authorize the abortion, yet she could not, or at least did not, attest to the court that Ms. Cox's condition poses the risks the exception requires. So there, Ryan, it was putting the onus essentially back on Kate Cox's doctor in this case.
Yeah, this is very interesting because if you just read that first statement that you read in a vacuum, it sounds very good for Ms. Cox and her doctors. You know, I mean, this is the whole argument that they've been trying to make, is that these very sensitive medical decisions should not be up to lawmakers or to judges, but this should be between a woman and her doctor. And the court kind of affirms that in a way, but they say that in this specific case, her doctor did not prove sufficiently that Ms. Cox fits the narrow exceptions for a medical abortion. And this is where it really gets in the weeds, so bear with me. The statute, the language in the statute in Texas's abortion ban says that a woman can receive an abortion if their doctor deems by reasonable medical judgment that they are at risk of losing their life or a significant bodily function. In the lower court, Dr. Carson, Ms. Cox's OBGYN, said that she had a good faith belief that she needed this abortion to protect her health. That is a different standard than reasonable medical judgment, and the court said that Dr. Carson did not meet that higher bar for proving that Ms. Cox needs this abortion in that case. So a loss for Ms. Cox there. However, the court gives a lot of deference to doctors, more so than we've ever heard them give to doctors before, because women and doctors since the beginning of Texas's abortion bans have argued that the exception is too vague and it requires doctors to wait until a woman is within an inch of her life to intervene, because they don't want to do it too early, because the state could then come back and say that this wasn't necessary and now you're going to prison. But the court says that the statute does not require imminence. It does not require a woman to be on death's door, if you will. The exception does not hold a doctor to even medical certainty, nor does it cover only adverse results that will happen immediately absent an abortion. That is all to say that doctors are given a lot of deference and trust here. And this will play into some other cases within the court that are specifically asking them to clarify when a doctor can intervene.
So this one case involving Kate Cox has gotten so much attention, but there is a case that's kind of running almost in tandem involving a number of other plaintiffs represented by some of the same attorneys as well. Give us an update on where that stands and maybe how this could factor into what they're expecting when the Supreme Court issues its opinion for that case.
So the other case that predates Cox is called Zarowski v. Texas. That's named after Amanda Zarowski, who's another Texas woman with a very tragic story. She is also a woman who desperately wants a family with her husband and got pregnant until it all went very wrong, and her fetus had serious complications that put her health at dire risk. She ended up going into sepsis because she argues her doctor said that the proper medical treatment for this complication is abortion, but we cannot give that to you. You have to leave the state. And they ended up not being able to treat her until, as we said before, she was literally within an inch of her life. And that was a very traumatic experience that brought her to the court and said, this is not right. My doctor needed more leeway in order to act sooner. And she's joining that lawsuit with 20 other women, many of them with similar, very tragic circumstances. And they're asking the court to clarify what it means in that medical exception. When can doctors intervene, and what standards do they have to prove to show that their abortions were necessary? They're also asking the court to find that provision unconstitutional because it does not sufficiently protect women and give doctors due deference. A lot of the language that I just explained sounds like the court is agreeing in some sense that the decision needs to rest with the doctors and we need to trust their medical judgment. So I spoke with Ms. Cox's attorney last night, and he said that actually gives him some optimism that the court will come out with a more favorable opinion in the Zarowski case, but that could take until June.
Well, let's listen to a portion of that interview. This is from the end of that conversation you had with that attorney, talking about kind of the impact this is having on all these plaintiffs, including Kate Cox. So let's listen to that, and we'll continue our conversation on the other side.
So many of our plaintiffs desperately want to have a baby. And sometimes, unfortunately, you just get a terrible diagnosis. And the best way to have a baby is to have an abortion, medically appropriate, doctor-approved abortion, and then try again so that you can bring life into this world. I think that's what so many of our folks are trying to do here. And so, I would ask the folks that disagree to pray for those families and pray for their successful outcomes.
And Ryan, that was from your conversation with the attorney who represented Kate Cox, and anyone who would like to see that in full can watch it right now over on our website, kxan.com. And our top story for today, a lot of people, again, are monitoring this, but Ryan, can you talk about what maybe comes next? What are you looking for in terms of what your coverage will go and where that will go next?
Well, so we are, of course, waiting to hear from Miss Cox. Of course, we all wish that she's doing well and was able to get the care that she needed in another state. It seems like this is the end of the road for her legal battles, but we are also waiting on the Zarowski case to come back from the Supreme Court. And that could provide a lot more clarification. That could prevent women from being in these situations like Kate Cox found herself. I'm glad we played that portion of the interview because it really underscores here that, we've been talking about these issues in a legal sense, often a political sense, but really these are very personal, sensitive, traumatic stories that affect real people. And this is not some academic exercise in, legal precedent. This is clearly something that has affected Kate Cox's family and even her attorneys very emotionally and personally. So at the end of the day, I think it's important when we're covering these issues to just remember that, we're not talking about court decisions here or politics or any of those kind of implications. We're talking about real people and their health.
Very important context to bring into this conversation. And Capitol correspondent Ryan Chandler, thank you for all the reporting you've done thus far. I know it is only beginning in some senses, so we will look to you as more developments come in the courts. So we appreciate it. Thank you again for being here.
Thank you.
All right, everybody, that is Ryan Chandler. You can read his reporting on our website right now at kxan.com. I'm Will Dupree coming to you from the KXAN Live Studio. We will see you back here at another time. Hope you all enjoy the rest of your day. Take care.